Welcome back, everyone, to the Shop Stool Podcast. This is episode 15 of season 6, and it's also the second last episode of the season. So we've got a guest today, which we're excited about. We'll get to that in a second, but I just wanted to reiterate that this is the second to last episode. And we mentioned this in the last episode. If there's any questions that you have for myself, Joey, or Brian, or just the podcast in general, get in touch with us, and we want to put out some answers to those questions in the final show, which will be in 2 weeks from today.
I've had a few come through already, Robin, so yeah.
Did you? Cool.
Yeah, keep them coming in.
Yeah, and then we'll get to as many as possible, particularly the spicy ones. Those are the ones that we'll get to first. All right, so yeah, we have a guest on today, which is great because we haven't actually had a guest for a few weeks. So it's nice to talk to someone new for a change. And this time it's all the way from the far north coast of New South Wales. I'd like to welcome Jeremy to the show from JD Lee Furniture. Is that how I say it?
Yeah, perfect. Spot on. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for coming on the show, mate. It's great to have you. I have gone through a lot of your Instagram feed, and there's some amazing pieces, really beautiful stuff. So I'm quite interested to get into them. But before we do that, I'm really interested to hear how you became a professional furniture maker.
Professional. I just made it up as I went, I think. I'm still faking it till I make it, I reckon. And that's kind of the story. I don't know that there's with so many people that are in, similar positions to me, and same with you guys, I suppose. Everyone's kind of come to this gig from a different path. There's no real one road that leads you here, and I suppose for me, yeah, it's pretty cool to look back on it and see how I got here. But a lot of it was, yes, not an accident. It's just sort of like one step in front of the other. And that's how I really approach everything, in my business and in life is which way do I want to go, and then just start moving in that direction. And eventually you look back and you've come, you've made some distance. So I started, I suppose my journey started, I was always a tinkerer. I loved to make things. I made skateboards as a kid. And I had something like 15, 20 skateboards in my quiver. Did a lot of downhill skating. So that was sort of my introduction into woodwork. Stealing shells from the garage and cutting them out with a jigsaw and, drilling holes in them. And it was like a work of art. You'd stencil something from a skating mag on the back and cut up the grip tape so it looked really cool. So that was the intro. From there, I travelled a bit after school. I didn't go straight into woodworking or design or anything. I actually started, I did a year in public relations for some reason at TAFE. And it's funny, I liked the idea of that at the time. And then after I did a bit of work in it, I wasn't that interested. But public relations is so massive in what I do today. And it's just funny that was kind of like the first step.
Yeah, what a great base to
really
start your career from.
Yeah, really, I feel like so much of, what I tell everyone with work is you can't sell anything that people can't see. So much of my work is basically creating content. I mean, really, what I am is a furniture maker and a designer, and that's the heart of it. But to be sustainable, I've got to be able to communicate it. And if you can't communicate it, then it is nothing. It doesn't matter if you've got the best piece in the world if you can't communicate it, or if you've got no one's going to see it. And most of the time, it's not the best pieces that are seen; it's the less desirable work, maybe. That people have got larger budgets to help communicate it, and so communication is just massive, It's like having an ocean without water, having a business. Communication is everything, So that was the the foundation of my woodworking career, was studying public relations. And anyway, from there, I spent some time and figured that I really wanted to do something in design. And I went to a design school in Sydney called Enmore Design Centre, which is like a TAFE, and I did a diploma, a 2-year course of industrial design, and that was really good for a few reasons. It was also, not very good for a whole bunch of other reasons, but I think what it did for me is really instill this idea of design ideation, like how you go from sketches and build, the progression of that. And what we learnt there was sketches, making nice pictures, then turning that into CAD, and then making them to parts, and then how you manufacture that. And I feel like that course is really geared at mass manufacturing, or just outsourcing manufacturing, really, not even mass manufacturing, and which is a good skill, I suppose. And all the job opportunities post that were really doing POS, point of service, point of display, whatever, however you call it, like the stands, basically, like really, I suppose for me, less desirable work. But what that course did do was, after 2 years, really ignited a passion for furniture and furniture design. And I suppose I left that course and got a lease on a warehouse with a friend of mine, and we had this flat pack CNC design of furniture that we were going to make and sell, and we were really pumped on that. And we got this lease and got all these ideas, and basically just didn't see anything through for maybe 6 months, and realized, man, I don't have the skills to do anything here. And what I really want to do is, there was just so many unknown bits. I was really passionate, but I just didn't really know what I was doing, and I kind of saw that my passion lay more in the fine furniture.
Sorry, Jeremy, was that while you were still in Sydney?
Yeah, still in Sydney. Yeah, so sorry, I grew up in Sydney. I kind of, after I left school, I moved up to the north. I moved around for a few years and then ended up back down in Sydney. And so I was in Sydney for a few. That's where I met my partner. And so we stayed there. I only been up in the North Coast for the last 8 years, I think. Still in Sydney. Did that. I suppose what I'm saying is that I tried this thing, and for me at the time it felt like a big fail. But what the way I approach everything is, it's not a fail. It's like it was just another step. You know what I mean? So I did that. It didn't work out, and it kind of helped me redirect to where I wanted to go, which was, like I said, fine furniture. And so I put a lot of energy into that. And I was really lucky to find an apprenticeship quite close to where I lived with this super talented group of furniture makers. They did, maybe half solid timber furniture, half cabinetry, and high-end cabinetry, veneer work, like big wardrobes, full library setups, like really incredible stuff. And before that, I suppose I sent, upwards of 20, maybe 30 plus emails to every furniture maker I could find and said, hey, I really want to learn. How do I do this? I want to do what you do. How do I get there? And most of the responses were, try getting to a workshop. But I probably only had a handful of people reply. And at the time I was pretty ticked off, but now as someone, where I'm at, I get lots of people messaging me regularly, and I just don't have the time. And I suppose I don't have the energy to reply straight away. So I get that now. But anyway, yeah, I got this apprenticeship. These guys were awesome. They were really talented. I spent a year basically sorting timber, sorting screws, being a lapdog, just doing what I was told. Didn't really get on the tools that much. But I got talked through a few processes, the sanding. It was a really like a hierarchical setup, which at the time I thought was a bit of a joke. But I definitely appreciate it now, knowing how intricate everything is. And they couldn't just let me loose on, pieces that they're charging $3, $4, $5, plus $1,000 for. And I realise now how much I learned just from observation, and being around them. So that was one part. I came to the end of that year there, and it was really awesome projects, but it wasn't a good fit in terms of the culture, the work culture. I don't really, they're all lovely guys, but anyway, we really just didn't, it wasn't good for me, coming from someone who was really keen to learn and felt like, point is I struggle, just in case. They're still lovely guys. I don't want to say anything bad. So from there, I was looking for more work and continuing my apprenticeship. Did another 6 months making kitchens out of melamine with someone else, and he was great too, but I really just wasn't passionate about it. And throughout this whole time, I was sketching and designing, and I had sort of a collection in my head. And I suppose for me, starting this gig and, where I'm at today, what I really wanted to do was be a designer. Yeah, I wanted to design and make a product. I wasn't a woodworker that came in and just wanted to be on the tools and make whatever someone else wanted me to make. And I suppose what I really learned working with that first crew for the first year, they made a lot of work for some pretty top dog designers, and there was just such a clash with communication between what the designers wanted and then how these guys went around making it. And there was so much like back talk and workshop talk about, well, this is silly, they should have just done it like that, you know. And that's, you know, like just the miscommunication between the client and you know, ways to produce something and the, you know, the designer. And anyway, so I saw that as kind of something that maybe I suppose it's been an advantage for me that I go the way I design things today. It's always from a, you know, like any woodworker designing something, you know what the tools are. You know you've got this greater depth of understanding of the manufacturing process. So it really was an advantage for me, and especially having the design skills and knowing the style. You know, like there was a few elements that I got drilled into me at design school for sustainability, and that was design for, you know, using eco materials. Yeah, it's one thing. Design for flat pack was another thing. You know, they told me that was a good idea, and just for the storage for. Yeah,
sorry, just to interrupt. So when you say design for flat pack, do you mean even with your fine furniture, and, you know, allow for shipping from that perspective?
Well, maybe flat pack's the wrong word. Design for disassembly. Okay. So design in parts, right? Opposed to a woodworker, like generally everything's all fixed together, you know? Whereas it's like, where can I make these parts modular? Where can I, you know, like what has to be fixed and where can I adapt hardware to, do you know what I mean, to cover that. Sometimes things need to be fixed for strength and structural integrity, but sometimes you can, you know, use different hardwares to make it. Yeah, and the whole idea being that if a part gets broken, you can replace that part. You just don't need to. You don't need to throw out the whole thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was one aspect. The other aspect was design for multifunctionality. I suppose that was, that's kind of irrelevant. And anyway, through all these, I suppose my focus today in that is always just design for longevity. I'm less worried about what material I use, like I used to be in the beginning. You know, make sure it's all eco. Like definitely there's a whole thing about using quality materials, but I'm or eco oils, or, you know, like oils that are low VOC and the rest of it. But if it's not designed to last, then it's not sustainable. Really, is my whole vision. You know, like you can make as many eco products, but if they're seasonal and they're going to be thrown away, then it's not sustainable.
You're still part of the problem.
Yeah, and I hear that there's a price point part in that, and so there's appropriate, you know, like levels and communications that need to happen through there. Anyway, from there, basically, in a short story long, I left that second job and opened a warehouse with a friend of mine. I hadn't completed my apprenticeship. I was keen to, but they wouldn't let me do the TAFE. Well, it was going to cost me like $9,000 or something to complete the TAFE instead of $2,000 if I'd done my apprenticeship. And the TAFE was, you know, the kids in the class, no one was really keen. So I felt like it just wasn't set up for motivated people. I was 25 or 26, so I was really keen to make it happen. And yeah, I didn't feel supported in that. And I suppose the best thing I did was open my own workshop and just take on any job that I could. And we were sort of in a position to be able to do that. I shared the warehouse with a friend of mine. He's a legend who's still got the same warehouse now. And yeah, I so much trial and error. You know, like everyone, I feel like you can watch and you can read till the cows come home, but for me, I'm like everything's 1,000 hours. You know what I mean? Or try. That's what I tell my kids all the time. It's not like everything's hard till you know how to do it, or everything's easy once you know how to do it. You know, it's like you just got to practice, go again. The first time you're never going to get it right, so it's always just hands on the tools. And then from there, you just build that muscle memory and things become natural, you know. So, yeah, first 2 years slowly built up the business, blah, 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 blah. There's a lot in between there, but, yeah, that's kind of the short story of where I am now.
Now, just going back to what you were saying about the TAFE, the expense, I don't want to necessarily delve into this too much if you don't want to talk about it, but can you explain why there was that difference in expense? Yeah,
I mean... happy to talk about whatever. I think I'm not sure what it is today. I feel like every few years the TAFE setup changes with governments anyway. But basically it was, if you were going through an apprenticeship, then it's covered through it's like subsidized through the apprenticeship, whatever. But if you're going through it, like there were students there that were people that just paid to do the course, and that was like 3 or 4 times the cost for them because they're not going straight into employment. It's kind of like, I feel like it was similar to, overseas students to Australian students, or however there was a higher fee. And like I said, it wasn't, I mean, that was just my experience. It just wasn't really set up for keen learners. Especially, like, I was motivated, I'd studied 2 separate courses, completed them, done well. I knew where I wanted to go, and this was like, you weren't allowed to go past the level, which is an educational system thing, and it's there for a reason, and I don't think that it's a bad thing, because obviously there's safety and there's only so much that you can do, but it is limiting for those, and which is why I think everyone I'd speak to, there's no clear way to do what we do, and everyone kind of finds their own space to do it.
I think you're dead right. Like the people that I've spoken to about TAFE that have gone in there as not school leavers, but in their mid-20s have found the same thing. Like TAFE is there to teach you a certain set of skills, and you got to come out and you just fulfilled that criteria. It's sort of not really about pushing you to go beyond and make something of your own. It's basically teaching you how to be employed by somebody, I think, rather than to be self-employed and really develop your own personal skills. That's what I've taken from conversations with other people that have been through it. So yeah, it sounds like you've had a similar relationship with TAFE.
I think it also, like, it's positive or negative, who knows? Like, it really, it's pushed the entrepreneurial part of me. Like, you know what I mean? It's just another block that's been like, hey, how can I get over that? And that's being a business. You know what I mean? So if anything, it's just like that it was teaching me how to go over this, like, here's a hurdle, which way do you want to go? And, and I suppose listening to your podcast, and I know you talk, most of the listeners are other woodworkers. I feel like the best thing for me, and what I say to other people when they talk to me about doing what I do or building a business, it's always, for me, it's like the bottom line is get motivated on not out your mission. What are you here for? It's the most important thing. If I can figure out what I'm here for, then no matter how, like, nothing else matters. It means I can get really clear on what I'm doing and focus on that. So if I'm here to make solid timber furniture, how am I going to do that? Do I need to subsidize myself with a second income, which a lot of people do, and it's really important to not put. I found the stress of having so much weight on my business early on really was detrimental. You cross lines that you don't want to cross. You finish jobs quicker than you need to. Whereas if you've got that financial support, I suppose set achievable goals so that even if you're not coming up financially or whatever, if you're doing what you want to do, then you've been paid in full. Like that's what you got to walk away with, and I think that's really important for me today. Still, is always acknowledging that, and I've had periods where I've had people working in the shop for me, and I've been pulling a job somewhere else at the timber mill around the corner, just cutting and sorting stacks of timber because I just need some money coming in. So yeah, it's like if what's your mission? What do you want to do? And for me, it's always been that pushing my own level and my own skill in designing and trying to be innovative in my own designs, and I suppose just make shit that I love. Like, really, all I'm doing is all my designs are pieces that I'm like I froth heavy on furniture. Like, I really like a style of furniture. When I see that, I get goosebumps, like that's the stuff that really, it turns me on. Like, I see something good and I'm like, oh, and I want to make that for me, and so I try to do that as best as I can. And there's always like the scale of what how are you going to balance all that?
Yeah, like looking at your body of work, it's big for like a professional woodworker of 10 years. Like I'm going through your website and there's a lot of product on there. Like it's pretty impressive, and like I can tell that you have a passion for chairs. Like by the volume and the quality and the variations in the design. Talk us through why chairs? Like why tackle the one thing that is probably hardest to make a profit on and is the most technical thing that a woodworker can design and make?
Yeah.
Was it the challenge of it that you like?
great question, and there's a lot in there. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've freaking hustled, man, to create the collection of work and the body of work that I have. Like, I suppose what's changed for me is I've got 4 kids at home, and my wife is at home full time. So it's do or die out here. You know what I mean? Like, it really is. I've got to do this, otherwise we're shutting the doors. And it's come close a few times. Like I said, I worked at the timber mill just to keep the doors open, just to get another. I mean, and I was getting paid not very much to do that, but it was just enough to kind of, like I said, what's my mission? If that's my mission, then I'm getting paid in full. All I've got to do is do, and everyone's got that same story. I'm not unique in that. But I suppose for me, what I've really been trying to do is just, I've released maybe 5 collections over the last 10 years, and each collection is built on my skill. And I suppose, like I said, from understand when I was speaking in the beginning, being a designer that understands the manufacturing process, it makes it easier for me to design things. And I suppose the longer I've spent on the shop floor and the more projects that I've taken on, not just my own, but commission pieces. I tend not to share commission pieces because I only want to sell. I'm really trying to sell a product because that's my mission.
So the chairs and the products that we're seeing on your website are mainly self-commissioned works?
Yeah, no, they're all self-commissioned, man.
They're all self-commissioned works. Wow.
Yeah, all my work is I make a product and I communicate it and then I sell it. And right. That's my model. That's always been my model. I come up with the design and then I market that design. Throughout, I'm taking on other projects. Especially, I used to take on a lot more of commission works to subsidize that. All my work it's stuff that I want for me. It's like stuff that I think looks good, and I want to make this, and it's like I want to. Yeah, so I suppose each body of work collection that I've released is built on the skills that I've gained, and it's always been like a challenge. I get bored doing the same thing and the same pieces, and I want to just test my skills. And like I said, I froth on furniture, so I want to make these new pieces. And I know I'm far from the best woodworker out there. There's people with ninja skills, and I'm still got a lot to learn on my path. I've definitely learnt a lot, and I've got a big body of work or big toolkit to pull from. But it's endless, and I really like this gig because it is endless. And through that, I've also become more specialised. I try to stay focused because it is endless, and the more I stay focused, the more I can build on those skills. So yeah, each collection's pushing the level. My collection before the collection of chairs. So the chairs that I've been releasing, that's been a collection of 10 chairs was the idea. Before the collection of chairs, I released this other collection called the Ruka collection, and that was focusing on detailed joinery, like kind of stepping up the level of the work that I was doing. Like I had a $2,500 armchair on my website, and I went and designed a $10,000 armchair. And the $10,000 armchair it's got a hand rattan woven base, and that base alone, it takes me 7 days. It's something like 50 hours, of weaving, and it's kind of like you can't fuck that up either. You fuck up, there's kind of a lot in it, and I really just wanted to do stuff that is really focused, detailed. Take a project that might take a couple of days and make it, take on projects that take a week or 2 weeks, and really push the, again, it's like I've just pivoted. I'm doing this work and it's great, but really it's too much to keep up the numbers. I'd rather be doing more focused work and really taking my time with each piece. So how do I do that? I create pieces that do that, And so anyway, point being, I released this collection in 2020, maybe 2021. I spent it is a year in the background working on this. So I need someone working with me to release my products, and I'm taking a loss financially and working on my projects between, and I'm building up a big body of collection, a big body of work, and then I go get it photographed, and which costs money, and then I've got to upload it to the website. I do all the website stuff. There's so much energy that goes into it. It's at least, close to 2 years. So point being, I released this collection. I know I'm kind of waffling, so sorry about that, guys. But
no.
It's
this is great.
It's leading to something.
The less people hear from me and Robin, the better.
So I got this collection and I released it, and I was so proud of it. It was like this body of work that was this higher end product, higher price point. for me, I'm frothing on it. It looks freaking sick, and it's not the same as everything out there. I'm always trying to, like, I think a chair's a chair. I'm not trying to make these abstract designs, that are really like far from a chair. I just like tinkering and making things aesthetically to the style that I like, So I'm definitely not trying to recreate anything. And I think that's a whole different art in itself. But yeah, so I've created these pieces that I'm happy with. I feel like they're unique enough, or they tell the story of its own. The collection was sort of linked aesthetically as well. And point being, I got it up online, got some good features through the communications. I'm sending out a media release to everyone I know, and sending out media packages with images, and I got my Dropbox, and I might send a media release out to 20 plus editors, and I get one write-up. So it's kind of hard picking, and you really got to sell myself. Anyway, point being, I do that. My experience with when I release a collection is that no one's buying them. So I did this super expensive collection, right? And I was like, geez, this is the direction I want to go. This is awesome. I'm really proud of it. And then crickets. No one's calling. No one's interested. And I thought, what have I done? Should I have just made something cheaper, easier to manufacture, easier to sell, more affordable, all these things. And again, this is why it comes back to the mission. What's my mission? And I was clear on my mission of what I wanted to do. This is why I want to do it. I want to focus on the artistry. I want to create. So if I've got that as the mission, I don't care if no one's buying them. I'm proud of it, blah, blah, blah. My experience is, today, that's the only collection that I sell. I don't sell any of the other stuff now. My experience is it takes around a year from releasing a new product to get regular sales. And like I said today, those are the only pieces that I make. And I've kind of priced myself into that price point where I'm not working on more affordable pieces now. I'm working on high-end products. It's taken a long time to build to get there. But again, that's been my focus. And I've had to do all the stepping stones to get there. Anyway, so that was the collection before my last collection, before this collection of chairs. Getting into the chairs, there's a lot there, I suppose. My wife had her business at the time of designing this collection, and she was listening to this marketing material, and they're talking about when everyone zigs, you zag, like try to do something different. And like most people that make tables, in Australia, and they're a big outfit, they're importing chairs to sell, And chairs, you can get, and the truth is, a lot of them aren't that bad, it's easier to say, it's cheaply made and blah, 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 blah. Like, yeah, yes and no, some of them, and point being, some of them are still well made, you can get something that looks nice, feels good, and don't get me wrong, I think it's important to have that market. Like, not everyone can afford high-end products, and especially cost of living. There's so many elements that go into it. So I don't bag on any market because everyone needs their spot. What I do is I hone in on my mission, what I want to do, and focus on that niche, and kind of build myself into that niche. Be like, this is me, And I sort of did it by accident, and then that's how it's turned out, and I'm rolling with it, sort of thing, like making up as I go. So the idea of the chairs was, no one's really doing chairs, for me and for most woodworkers, I think the biggest sellers are tables and sofas, tables and chairs, like tables and sofas. They're my biggest sellers anyway, because they're kind of your centerpieces. The piece that people want to spend the most money on is a nice dining table because it's the centerpiece of the house. Same with the sofa, they spend a lot of time on it. So I was like, how do I turn a $10,000 table into a $30,000 dining set? It's kind of like if I can capitalize, because people were always asking me what chairs work with your table. And I'm like, well, fuck, I need some chairs, Exactly. There's so much to it as well. You make a chair now, I've got to shoot the chairs with the table. Like there's so much background work. It's actually exhausting, besides just making it. So yeah, the whole idea was, so that's part of it. The idea that I wanted to do something different because I was the same. I was like, man, don't make chairs. There's no money in chairs. I've had people commission me to make chairs before. I'd made a handful. And I'm like, God, they're just so expensive and they're hard to sell. And then I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to be the chair guy. I'm just going to I suppose chair making is, the other side of it is from a craft perspective. For me, I feel like it is the creme de la creme. I feel like it is
100%.
Like it requires so much and it's so unnoticed. It's kind of like this the modest whatever, like the ninja in the background that no one sees, but it's actually freaking doing everything, like the structural integrity is so important, ergonomics is so important, and aesthetics is so important. Like how do you put all those things together and create, like marrying those it's an art. Like for me, and I really like that in terms of, like I say, the work that I do is like my artwork or whatever, like it's my creative work. And I really like that furniture has these clear boundaries, We've got aesthetics, ergonomics, and construction, but like the way that it's built together. Like construction needs to be sound. So within these boundaries, what can we create, And it's kind of like a big challenge. And I think the first chair that I made, oh my God, it was a headache. I did that my first one was maybe 5 years ago. And it was exhausting. And I think I charged, $600 a chair or something ridiculous. And I suppose through that process as well, my price point has changed as my overheads have changed. Like if I want to do what I do, I've got to charge more because my life is fuller. So I was like, let's do. My idea was to create 100 sketches of different chairs and then pick my favorite 10 and work on them. At the time, we were busy. I had work coming through. I was like, I can take 3 months and work on this collection, I reckon. It'll take me 3 months to make these 10 chairs, a week each chair plus some, just in case. And the other side of that was I thought, hey, every time I release a collection, it takes me a year to make it. And then I send it off in one email with as a media release, and then one magazine picks it up. Once one mag's got it, no other mags want it because the images have been used. That is going to be one of the most frustrating things about dealing with media.
Totally,
like, they just want exclusivity on it. It's like, well, it's my thing. It's not yours.
Yeah,
I'm selling your magazine by my product appearing in there as well. Like it's a strange thing, the ownership that they want to take of something that you have spent, a year bringing to life. Like I'll never get my head around that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I could talk a lot about that. I've even had people
bearing in mind lots of these magazines cover architecture as well, and it's not like if a house has been shot once, that will be it in one magazine. But with product, they seem to apply different rules to it.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I can be really jaded about that also, but it's a game, I think media is smoke and mirrors, man. All this shit, social media, it's all smoke and mirrors. It really is. And the quicker I connect to that, and again, come back to number one, the mission, man. What's my mission? What am I here for? I'm here to do this because I love it. Fuck the people, I'll do this. If no one buys it, cool. You like my stuff, awesome. If you don't, whatever. You know what I mean? That's why you've got to be clear. For me, I've got to be clear on the mission. Otherwise, I get frustrated and I get pissed off. Because, media, man, back in the day, they used to do, I feel like I got a lot more coverage and editorials. These days, mags get in touch and they want money. Everyone wants money. And I get that. Yeah. The thing, they need to sell. They're a dying breed as well. Do you know what I mean? So I understand. I get pissed off when there's, it feels like an imbalance of, but whatever. I can get really upset about that. People, where they feature the product, the houses that have got products that are, that are paid for in advertisement, basically. It's but it's a business, and I get it. You know what I mean? Their mission is something, and they're following that mission. What's my mission? And again, so coming back to that, if that's the issue, why they're only featuring one thing once, why don't I make 10 chairs and then release them one a month? That was kind of my whole idea. It's like, well, if I can do this, then hopefully I can get some more features. Because then I've got exclusivity for these 3 chairs with this magazine, and then a few months later I can release this one here. I've got my hero chairs that I think are going to be a real big pull, and they might do well there. You know what I mean? It was spread the collection out. I've already done the work. That was my thinking about doing 10. It was pushing the boundaries with my own skill, whetting my creative appetite by doing something that I really like, and it was a good marketing thing, and it's also, like you said, no one's doing it, and I was like, I want more recognition. I feel like I hustle and I love it, but I can feel jaded too, man. I can feel like, why don't I have not more? I don't know. It's that part's real. I think it's real in everyone. And I suppose, like I said, just acknowledge that and come back to the mission is what I've always got to stay true to. You know what I mean? Yeah, so that's basically the story of the chairs. Wanting to set myself apart. I really thought it was going to set myself apart. I sent out so many media releases. I got in one magazine, and that was it. Everyone else followed up, and then they went cold, which I was quite disappointed with because I think it's a freaking awesome body of work. And I thought, the Australian design community might want to look at it more, but media weren't that interested. Even like some of the shows, like I reach out to them, and I feel like I didn't get the response that I was hoping for. So I can feel jaded about that. But again, what I got to look at, like I've got some of these chairs are being sold in Mexico. I just sent a sofa off to California. I've got clients specifying my work in Athens. Like I've built up this international audience with my work, and I can get jaded that I don't have sales through the roof. I've definitely got enough to keep me busy. But it's that.
Jeremy, do you handle all your own sales, or?
I do everything. Yeah, it's just me.
Yeah. So no showroom, just all online, based on the fact that there's good communication on your website with good photography and some media coverage, and those are the three things that people buy from rather than seeing the chair in person.
Yes, you nailed it. Yeah, I think that's it. Like good imagery. Look at my website. Every piece has got like 20 photos.
Yeah, I have to say your website is definitely the most clear website I've seen of any furniture maker. Like all the information's there without being cluttered. Like I would say any aspiring furniture maker needs to go and check it out because it's pretty perfect.
Yeah, and there's a lot. Like I don't understand why people don't put their prices on. Because if I don't have my,
I was about to say the same thing. Like the clarity of pricing.
Yeah.
For me, I've always had my pricing online up until last year, and I took it off. And I took it off and put it behind a sign up. So you sign up to my newsletter, you get a full folio with pricing on it. And that was purely for me just to capture client data and be able to communicate with them again, rather than just have them click on my website, never visit it again. It's then allows me to kind of track leads and things. But I think it's so important to have some kind of level of pricing just for people to, and for other furniture makers as well, to know what you're charging and know what they should be charging too, because like the whole industry does need to support each other like this. Like the second that you have somebody making, like, you're talking back to that $600 chair, like you're looking back on that going, well, what was my hourly rate on that chair? And you're like, I learned a lot of things out of it, but I made no money out of it. And I think there needs to be a balance, especially when you're coming into the craft, to know what people who are established are charging and try to find your path up to that level. So I think it's awesome that you have all your pricing clear as day online. It's really cool.
One thing I wanted to ask, just going back to what you're talking about, commissions versus manufacturing. Do you find more work? Obviously, it's hard now because you've built up your client base. But in the early days, was there a lot more work coming in, or potential work coming in from commissions? The reason I say is most of the people we have on the show do commission work because the thought of manufacturing is scary and daunting.
It's classic. See, I think it's the opposite. It's like, definitely, of course, yeah. I mean, most of my work was commission work because it had to be. And a big part of that was handcrafted. Shout out to Fred on handcrafted. He's been a legend and really supported me when I first started. And that whole platform, you guys know what handcrafted is, yeah? And
yeah. I've spoken about it on the show a few times, yeah. Yeah,
handcrafted with a K, Google it. Just a community of makers. And, so places like that. When I first started, there was Makers, I think was another one. There was a couple of those platforms. When the local project...
Makers Lane, was it?
Makers Lane, that's the one.
Yeah.
And then when the local project first started, that was just, I'm not sure if you remember that, that was just for woodworkers. So there was 10 woodworkers on that, and I was one of them. And it was basically a place to go to get quality furniture, whether it was commission or one-off. So there was a few platforms that helped me do that. And today, I mean, it's crazy because I've got maybe 4 months worth of work booked in, and 8 weeks of that is maybe even more, 9-10 weeks of that is commission work. which is unusual, but it's just what I got, And once you build up a relationship with an interior designer or with an architect, and they're like, hey, one of them is these clients come to me and they want an extension dining table, and they want it to be a pedestal dining table, and they want it to be, like 1.4 meter round, but they want to extend it another 1.5 meters, so it can be like and I'm like, and they can't find anything like that. And again, I love the parameters that they've set there. I'm like, you can't do that, but fucking watch me, like it's like a challenge kind of thing. And then another one's a bunch of bed heads for another interior designers, which is fun, and I get to pitch my own design ideas. I just don't tend to share this stuff because I want people to buy my product. And that's the thing, once you've done a product, you've done it once. Like half my collection, man, I do with my eyes closed, really. Like I've done it. The first time was so daunting. Double check everything, and you get really, the mental exhaustion of like making sure everything's right, which is just a rite of passage you got to go through with every project. To today, when I'm making some of my pieces, I just listen to a good book, get into my book, and just lose myself in the work. And I feel like that's the gift for me. That's the stuff that I love, when I can come to work and I can just disappear into it instead of like, is this right? How's this going to do? Got to test that. I really like that side of it too. It's really fun, and I get to push myself creatively. But it takes a lot longer, and you're always underquote. Even today, I underquote. And then, by the end of it, you've stretched yourself and I've learned. But yeah, so a balance of both things. Generally, I would say commission work is 10%. And then same like international sales around 10%. And then the rest is just my own work, like whether like interior designers and architects specifying my work, maybe 30%. People that are repeat clients is 30%, and the rest are just new clients. That's sort of like an on average statistics of my work.
Yeah.
I think if anything, man, treat your clients well, And I think like just to go back to what you said about new people established, building themselves up. I really think that it is important to be charging less when you're at that state, like because there's kind of like it's like a path, you kind of got to do the time. And I think it's important to have people at that price point, because there are clients that want a cheaper price point, and that's where these people can capitalize. Like I've really set to establishing myself at this high price point, but I've taken a lot of time and energy and focus that's what I want to do. Do you know what I mean? And I've kind of got the work to show it, to prove it, So I think that's really important, because you do see sometimes I see things come in and I'm like, well, like concerned about extraction integrity or, it's kind of difficult. You can't just mark yourself next to someone else. Well, you can really, and that's the thing with this. Like you can do whatever you want. You really can. There are no rules, and that's the whole. Like everyone in this gig has come from a different way. There are no rules, but I do see the importance of that. That stepping stone, going from starting slow, because you charge less because half of it's experience. You're learning. Yeah. And then, just quickly on the pricing as well. Even though that set pricing is on my website, if I'm struggling, with sales, I might, and someone reaches out, I might offer discounts directly, but I tend not to do sales or discounts on my product. I've done 2 in the past, and 2 or 3 over the last 8 years and 9 years, and I feel like it diminishes my brand if the product's on sale regularly. I really try not to do that. But man, sometimes I get stuck, and it does sort of make sense if I can put it on sale, make a lot of them at once. I save my time. That's the other thing with making one product. You make all your jigs and you do it all once, and then you capitalize on that. Anyway,
makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I love to hear that about the starting at a low price, because as someone who's in that position now, what you're talking about, early stages, making the mistakes on quotes, I am hounded by people telling me you are undercharging, you're not charging the right amount, you should be doing more. And it's all with the best intentions. But as the person in it, I don't feel like I'm at a point where I can charge that. I would feel completely out of my depth, and there's faking it till you make it to a point. At the next level, you're just a bullshitter, and that's what I would be if I was to charge the price I should be. So I'm stoked to hear you say that.
Yeah, I think it's an important part of the market. People reaching out to you to get that stuff done, and yeah, I think it's it's important.
Is there much of a network of makers where you are in Byron?
Oh man, Byron's full of furniture makers. It's crazy. I think everywhere is. It's just about how well that community connects. I think Melbourne, you see that it's such a. I feel like I would have loved to have started there with such a wide community. I mean, same with Sydney. There's so many crew around, and on Instagram we're all friends. Like I'm definitely. I feel like everyone's sort of doing their own thing. Maybe a couple of people that do similar work to me. But most people are doing, like woodworkers in like doors and windows or like more rustic. There's a lot of that rustic or like artisanal sculpted stuff up here, which is gorgeous, but I feel like it's just a different market to me. And with my work, again, less than maybe 10% is local. Most of my work goes to Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane, goes to the cities. So most of my clients I never actually see face-to-face. And most of my clients I'd spend is at least 2 to 20 emails before I get a sale,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. We're up to time, but I feel like this conversation could really go on for a lot longer.
Yeah, so much to say.
So much information in there. That's going to be an absolute cracker. I hope everybody enjoys it, and thank you so much for sharing it all, Jeremy.
Oh, lovely.
Maybe we'll do another round for next season, Jeremy. Get you back on the show and continue, because I feel like we've only just scratched the surface here.
Yeah, it's what I mean. I've been chatting to woodworkers this year. I had like 30 people. I put a post out on Instagram to say hit me up and we'll spend an hour chatting through, if they want mentorship, and I felt like everyone had the same questions, and so I really was trying to come here to try and answer some of those questions that people had pitched to me. And really, the reality is, wherever you're at, you're right where you need to be. Is the feedback from most of the people. Everyone's like, how do I get more of this? How do I do more of that? And for me, like I said, it's one step in front of the other. It's baby steps, man, until you look back and you build something up. It took me a long time to get here. I had some lucky wins on the way. I've also had some not so lucky wins, So I feel like wherever you're at, guys, you're right where you're meant to be, and just keep moving one foot in front of the other, and eventually you end up where you're supposed to be. So
yeah, that's going to be the title of the episode. I love it.
Oh, really? I thought it was going to be "Fuck it, let's make chairs."
Awesome. All right, Jeremy. Well, thanks again. All the best in the future, and as I say, hopefully we'll get to talk to you again in the future sometime.
Lovely. Thanks for having me, boys. Cheers.
Take care.
Cheers,
See you.
Bye.